Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the webinar this morning on license features on the OCS. We'll just do our usual run of things. We'll go straight into the presentation, and then if there's any questions at the end, we can get to those. And then following that, we'll see what's coming up in the next coming weeks.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be looking at licensed features on the Horner OCS. Let's get started. Let's look at our agenda for today. We'll discuss why some features are licensed and not everything is free. We will talk about the licensing parameters because licensing can sometimes evoke the misconception of ongoing costs. We'll discuss the availability of features for installation or licensing on a product line by product line basis. We will go through the simplified licensing process we have developed over the years. There will be demonstrations throughout, and we'll finish with a Q&A session. So why are some features licensed? Well, usually we license a particular feature because we pay a license fee to a third party who owns a portion of the intellectual property used to develop this feature for you. If we don't pass on this licensing fee, we would need to incorporate it into the cost of every unit, resulting in a higher sale price for all units, even those with features that are not frequently used by a significant percentage of customers. In the case of cost-sensitive products like the Micro OCS, it would make them less competitive if all features were included. Therefore, though it is not our preference, there is a reason behind the licensing approach. Now we'll look at the parameters of the license. Firstly, every feature we license is on a per unit basis. If you have a unit that requires WebMI support, you must have a license for that feature specifically for that unit. It's a one-time upgrade cost for the unit without any ongoing fees, recurring charges, or subscription requirements. When you upgrade the unit's license for that feature, it will continue to support the feature and any subsequent firmware updates for the entire lifespan of the unit. It won't affect the unit's ability to support the feature. If you need to replace a licensed unit in the future, you can transfer licenses from one unit to another by contacting this technical support team. It's not something you can do on your own, but it's possible. You just need to reach out to the support team for assistance. Now we'll go through the product release line and discuss the available license features for each product. We'll start with the XL series, specifically the XL Prime series. Additionally, we'll include the X5 unit with these two product series. We do this because the X5 unit is unique, offering similar functionality to an XL series unit, but in a package resembling a Micro series unit. From a licensing perspective, the X5 is grouped with the XL series. Starting with WebMI, it was the first feature licensed by Horner and is available for all modern Horner OCS products with an Ethernet port. Currently, there is a free version of WebMI, but it has limitations, allowing only one web page and a maximum of 5 variables. However, it can still provide machine status and the current status of key process parameters on a free web page. If you require more advanced WebMI features, there are two licensing tiers available, an unlimited version and a mid-tier version with approximately 20 pages and 100 variables. Another licensable feature for the XL Prime and X5 units is enhanced IEC. While Horner has supported standard IEC for years in all compatible products, enhanced IEC is a licensed extension offering additional capacity and increased speed by eliminating a firmware layer and simulation capabilities. It is a per unit licensed feature, expanding the variable capacity from 10,000 to roughly 70,000. Now we'll look at MQTT Sparkplug, which is one of the popular licensed features and serves as an industrial IIoT push protocol, gaining significant momentum in the field. While MQTT itself is a widely used generic protocol, the Sparkplug variant of MQTT holds the majority of the market share in the industrial sector. Now let's look at J1939. Horner has long supported this vehicle or mobile communications network. Typically, if you require J1939 on a project using a standard OCS XL series or XL Prime series unit with a single CAN port, you can order the unit directly from the factory with J1939 pre-installed. However, it is possible that in the future J1939 may become a licensable feature, enabling you to add it to a standard unit. But for now, it is recommended to order it pre-installed from the factory. Now we'll look at the licensed features of the Micro OCS. Firstly, it includes unlocked OCS I/O support, which allows compatibility with the new I/O family recently introduced to the Horner product line. Also, firmware version 15.7 introduced two new field licensable features: BACnet IP, a widely adopted building and automation protocol, and CANopen, a versatile field bus commonly used in motion control applications. Alongside these new protocols, the Micro OCS continues to offer WebMI as a licensed feature. Now we look at some important details about licensing. Over the years, we have refined the licensing process. When you compare the initial availability and licensing of WebMI to the present, the process has become much simpler. Now you can easily complete the entire licensing process within Seascape. The licensing process is most straightforward when the computer running Cscape and the OCS you are licensing both have internet access, especially if they are in the same room. Regardless of the protocol or feature you are licensing, you will need to purchase a voucher code. You can obtain the voucher code from your regular Horner distributor or directly from the Horner website's web store. Both options work equally well, and the voucher code will be delivered to you via email. As soon as you place the order and it is processed, you will receive an email containing the voucher code, allowing you to start using it immediately. During the licensing process, you will require a micro SD card for your OCS. Except for WebMI, the micro SD card is only needed during the licensing phase and not at runtime for other licensed features. However, considering the low cost of micro SD cards and the wide range of functionality they unlock, including maintenance capabilities and data logging, it is recommended to have a micro SD card in every OCS unit you use. We have a slide here which is showing for each of the voucher types what the part number is, and in the case of WebMI, it's also showing what some of the parameters are for that voucher. So you can use this to get the part number you need to order the voucher to license your unit. Now we'll walk through the licensing process before we demonstrate it. Before we begin the licensing process, there are a few things we need to ensure. First, we need to make sure that both our OCS firmware and Cscape versions are up to date. This applies particularly to the micro OCS when licensing beyond WebMI. CanOpen and BACnet IP require Cscape Service Pack 9 and firmware version 15.7. Also, you will need the voucher code on the micro SD card we saw earlier. To make the process as easy as possible, it is recommended to have Cscape with internet access. Lastly, ensure that the OCS you intend to license is online with Cscape. Next, you navigate within Cscape to locate the area that contains the licensing trigger for the specific feature you want to license. The exact location may vary depending on the feature you are licensing. For example, if you want to license WebMI, you will go to the graphics editor, and for CanOpen, you will need to access the hardware configuration. We will guide you through the process for each feature, indicating where you need to go to obtain the licenses. Once you're in the right location in Cscape, there will be an Install Validate License button. Simply follow the instructions provided. After completing the steps, perform a power cycle and double-check the system menu to ensure that the license has been successfully installed. If the license is not present, you can return to Cscape, which will retransfer the license file, allowing you to proceed smoothly. Now we'll demonstrate the location for each of the different licensable features, showing you where you need to go to initiate the licensing process. We'll start with WebMI. In the graphics editor, you will find a WebMI menu. From that menu, simply select Display Validate WebMI License. To license Enhanced IEC, you need to have an IEC program open. Once you've opened the program, navigate to the Tools menu in the main area of Cscape. From there, select Editor Options. In the dialog box that appears, go to the Compiler Options tab. Here you will find the Display Validate License button. To find MQTT Spark plug, go to the main Cscape area. From there, navigate to the Program menu and select Messaging. In the Messaging options, choose MQTT from the drop-down menu. Once you've selected the Controller tab and access the MQTT configuration dialog, you will find the Display Validate License button. To license BACnet IP for the micro OCS, go to Hardware Configuration, then select LAN 1. Press Config and navigate to the Downloadable Protocol section. In the Ethernet drop-down, choose BACnet IP Server. You will then see the Display Validate button. Please note that BACnet IP is already included as a standard protocol in the XL series, XL Prime series, and X5, so it does not require separate licensing for those models. For licensing CanOpen on a micro OCS, you need to access the hardware configuration. Navigate to the CAN1 configuration section and choose CanOpen. Depending on whether you want to apply it as a master or slave, a dialog will appear with the option to select the Display Validate License button. In XL series products like XL4 or XL7, where there is only one CAN port, you'll need to visit the Horner website and find the CanOpen firmware version specific to your product. Perform a firmware update to enable CanOpen and disable CScan support. In the XL Prime series, all variations of CAN protocol are embedded in the same firmware version. You can simply select CanOpen from the drop-down menu in the hardware configuration. So, for CanOpen licensing, XL series with single CAN port requires a firmware update. So, for CanOpen licensing, XL series with a single CAN port require a firmware update. XL Prime series has CanOpen embedded in firmware, and micro OCS requires the licensed feature access to the hardware configuration. Now we'll demonstrate how to add BACnet IP to a micro OCS which has been upgraded to version 15.7 and Cscape 9.9 Service Pack 9. This is the unit we'll be licensing today. In this example, we'll license it for both BACnet and CanOpen. It's an unusual case to license two different features in the same application, but it can happen with combinations like BACnet and WebMI or CanOpen and WebMI. We need to make sure we meet a few prerequisites. The unit we're using is a Micro OCS X7, and we need to confirm that the firmware version is 15.7 or later. We'll navigate to the status section to verify. So once we've confirmed our firmware is already at 15.7 or later, we're ready to proceed. Now we make sure we have a memory card installed in the unit, and we do. Lastly, we check the existing licenses on this unit. As you can see, there are no licenses for CanOpen or BACnet IP. This unit is currently unlicensed, so we go to Zscape to begin the licensing process. One important note is that you require a voucher code to license a unit. You can obtain this code from your local Horner distributor or through the Horner website, and the voucher code will be delivered via email. For each feature you wish to license, you'll need to navigate to the corresponding licensing area in Zscape. In the case of BACnet and CanOpen, it can be found in the hardware configuration section. Let's start with BACnet. To do this, go to the LAN 1 configuration and select BACnet IP server from the downloadable protocols drop-down list. A display validate button will appear, allowing you to proceed with the licensing process. Simply press the button to continue. Zscape, connected to the computer via the internet, has performed checks. It has verified the MAC address of the local OCS unit to identify the specific unit. Additionally, it has contacted the Horner licensing server online to check for any existing licenses. As expected, it reports that no license has been established. And so we press OK and click the Obtain License button. At this stage, we can paste in the voucher code we received after ordering. Once we have pasted in the voucher code, we can click Apply Voucher to successfully apply the code in Zscape. Zscape then informs us that the unit needs to be power cycled to complete the licensing process. We press OK and repeat the power cycling process one more time. Afterwards, we navigate back to the system menu to check the license details and confirm if the license has been applied. If it hasn't, it simply means we need to return to Zscape and continue the process. Going back to Zscape, we revisit the licensing area for BACnet under hardware configuration, specifically in the LAN 1 BACnet IP display validate section. Zscape performs another check indicating that the license server acknowledges the existence of an entry. However, for some reason, the license was not successfully downloaded during the previous attempt, so we proceed to download it again. Zscape now confirms that the unit has a permanent license. To ensure the license is properly applied, we power cycle the unit once more and revisit the licensing area to double check. Upon returning to the system menu and navigating to the licensing details section, we find that our BACnet IP license is now valid. It's worth noting that the slight imperfection in the process helps demonstrate how to address the issue if the license doesn't appear after downloading. In such cases, revisiting Zscape allows us to quickly correct the problem. Now we have successfully applied the BACnet license to this specific unit. Next, we'll demonstrate how to license the same unit for CanOpen. To add CanOpen support to this Micro OCS, we need to ensure that we have firmware version 15.7 or later and a memory card installed. Once we've confirmed these prerequisites, we can proceed with the licensing process. Let's go back to Zscape. We've already copied the voucher number received via email for the CanOpen license. Now, in the hardware configuration section, we'll select CanOpen from the list since it's a CAN protocol, not Ethernet. Clicking the config button, we'll choose whether to support CanOpen as a master or a slave. Here we'll select master. An error will pop up here, but that's just because it hasn't been configured. Now we have the display validate license button ready to press. Pressing the display validate license button, we expect to see that no CanOpen license has been applied to this unit, and we do. So we click the obtain license button and paste in the CanOpen voucher code. Then we apply the voucher. The voucher has been successfully applied and now the unit needs to be power cycled. After power cycling the unit, we'll check if the license has been applied and if any further steps are required. Opening the license details section, we can see that the CanOpen license has been successfully applied. In these demonstrations, we've shown you how to license a Micro OCS for both BACnet IP and CanOpen protocols. There's an extensive range of features and functions available with our Horner all-in-one controllers which come preloaded at no additional cost. However, certain features may require field installation or can be licensed through a one-time upgrade fee. It's important to note that there are no recurring fees or subscriptions involved, and licensing is on a per-unit basis. Furthermore, any future firmware upgrades applied to a licensed unit will not affect the functionality of the licensed feature. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you so much for listening, and the Q&A session will begin shortly.
Okay, so we have a question in how do we apply the license code for CanOpen to the SD card? So in the section of when you're configuring CanOpen, there's a display validate. So you'll actually enter the code in there. So you'll be connected to the unit for this. You connect it, so you enter your code in there, you validate it, and then the code will be applied. If that's not clear, I can follow up with you after again. But you don't have to manually put the license on the SD card yourself. It's done via Cscape. Okay, is there specific versions for micro series? So for the licensing on the micro series, you do need Cscape 9.9 Service Pack 9, as well as 15.70 on the micro series units for the licensing. Okay, I'm not seeing any other ones in just yet. So I'll take you back to what's coming up. So next week we have a Ethernet barcode reader using a Horner OCS, and then that's followed by sending SMS. I'll just give one last check of the questions there. Not seeing anything else in. Okay. Thank you all for joining this morning, and we hope to see you again next week. Have a good day.